You're tuned into another episode of Bread Before Bed.
So we are in Genesis, the 31st chapter on tonight. We won't be covering the entire chapter as usual because this chapter is very lengthy and I want to be able to explain the text while I read it. This section is subtitled, Jacob Returns Home. And he heard the words of Laban's sons, saying, Jacob hath taken away all that was our father's, and of that which our father has, he got all the glory. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. And the Lord said unto Jacob, Return unto the land of thy fathers, and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. The first thing I want to pull out is that Jacob has always been good to Laban. And the crazy thing is that Laban identified the fact that since Jacob was with him, he has been nothing but blessed. His cattle and everything else has multiplied. But it's funny and crazy how Laban allowed his sons to convince him that Jacob was taking advantage of him. Another point I want to point out real quick is that God reminded Jacob that I am with you. And that's something that God constantly does through situations and circumstances in our lives. He reminds us that he is always and constantly with us. He never leaves us nor forsaken us. Verse 4 reads, And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field unto his flocks, and said unto them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not towards me as before. But the God of my father hath been with me, and ye know that with all my power I have served your father. And your father hath deceived me, and changed my wages 10 times. But God suffered him not to hurt me. If he said, Thus the speckled shall be thy wages, then all the cattle bear speckled. And if he said, Thus the ring straight shall be my hire, then bear all the cattle ring straight. Thus God has taken away the cattle of your father and hath given them to me. And it came to pass at the time that the cattle conceived, that I lifted up mine eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leap unto the cattle were ring straight, speckled, and grizzled. And the angel of God spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, Here am I. And he said, Lift up now thine eyes, and see all the rams which leap upon the cattle are ring straight, speckled, and grizzled. For I have seen all that Laban doeth unto thee. I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointest the pillar, and where thou vowedest a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee out from this land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. So first I want to pull out how, as the text was subtitled, Jacob returns back home. This particular portion, he's pulling his wives out into the field because he wants a moment of privacy with his wives so that he can explain to them what has been going on between him and their father. And basically Jacob wants to let them know, like, since I got here, I've been nothing but a blessing to your father. We've made certain agreements, and he has been breaking these agreements since I have been here. And then he goes on and proceeds on to let his wives know that God spoke to him in a dream. And the thing about the dream that I want to point out is, first it said that the angel of the Lord spoke to Jacob, right? And then the text turned around and said, the God of Bethel, right? So this is called a Christophany, right? This is Christ revealing himself to someone in the Old Testament. And sometimes it refers to him as the angel of the Lord because that is how man perceives him, because they don't have a full revelation of who he is. That's why he had to explain to him who he was. And then he reassured him of what he wanted him to do. Go back home to the land of your kindred. So let's proceed. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, Is there yet any portion of inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted of him strangers? For he hath sold us and hath quite devoured also our money. For all the riches which God has taken from our father, that is ours and our children's, now then, whatsoever God said unto thee, do. Now this is a sad part of the text for me, because when Jacob explained to his wives the situation between him and their father, they confirmed that they understood, that they saw everything that their dad was doing. And it's sad because from their point of view, their dad has been treating his own children, treating them as if they were strangers. He basically manipulated them and sold them into marrying Jacob. And they're basically saying, we don't have any inheritance here. Our father doesn't look out for us and make sure that we have generational wealth. So basically they're telling their husband, like, whatever God is telling you to do, we're with you, we're behind you, and we support you. This portion at verse 17 is subtitled, Laban Pursues Jacob. Then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives upon camels, and he carried away all his cattle and all his goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting which he had gotten in Padan Aram, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. And Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's. And Jacob stole away unawares to Laban the Syrian. In that he told him not, he fled. So he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and he passed over the river and set his face toward the Mount Gilead. So what had happened is, after Jacob's wives agreed to follow his instructions based off the leadership of God, Jacob got all of his stuff, got all of his family, and he rose up and he left without Laban knowing, because he knew if he would have told Laban, Laban would have tried to stop him or hurt him or anything. So he took off, and in the midst of him taking off, Laban didn't know, and something that Jacob didn't know is his wife Rachel stole her dad's idol gods. And this is really gonna piss Laban off, because in that time those people were serious about their idols. They worshiped them, and these were gods to them. 22 reads, And it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob was fled, and he took his brethren with him and pursued after him a 7 days' journey, and they overtook him in the Mount Gilead. And God came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night and said unto him, Take heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. So this part of the text tells us that once Laban found out that Jacob was fleeing, he pursued him for 7 days. You know how bad you gotta want to get somebody when you chase after them for 7 days straight? But one thing that we can see is that God intervened on Jacob's behalf, because God is our protector. And God spoke to Laban in a dream and said, you better not even say nothing to him, good or bad. Don't even play with him. God fights on our behalf. Again, being to the fact that the chapter is long, we're going to stop right here at the halfway mark and continue to see what happens between Laban and Jacob next time.
Dun, dun, dun. You just got that bread before bed.